you started the crate digging with your mom's albums. And
I wasn't like playing outside with my friends or none of that stuff. I was in the studio since I was 12 years old. Catch up. You got to catch up, man. You got to stay with it, and if not, like these kids are going to just lap you. You know what I mean? And I've been lapped plenty of times, you know what I'm saying? Where I'll discover somebody, I'm like, "Holy shit, like how the hell did you make this?" And then we got nominated for a Grammy. It just happened, you know what I'm saying?
El Dusty, what's up, man?
How's it going, bro?
Oh, I'm good. How about you?
Doing good, doing well. Just hanging out, taking it easy today. It's Saturday, so just chilling out.
Nothing better than a nice, chill Saturday, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. So I was checking out your tracks, and I really like them, man. Especially the new stuff, Tra Tra Tra, the Phoenix. I mean, seems like you got creativity and stuff coming from everywhere. Tell me where you get all this musical energy.
Then I don't know. I just kind of discovered beat making and DJing, and and it was just something that just kind of naturally came to me where I started finding samples that other people were sampling in her collection, and then I was like, oh crap, this is how you make it. I started when I was probably like 13, 14 years old, so I've been doing it for a while.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So pretty much you started the crate digging with your mom's albums, and then and then you heard other people sampling the same records that you had, and you're like, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah, a bunch of like Tribe Called Quest and a lot of like the East Coast hip hop that was using a lot of samples and stuff like that. I was just finding all kinds of stuff and just kind of figuring it out in my head. I'm kind of from a small town, so there's not really too many people that were into that sort of thing at the moment. And so I kind of started had an early start and introduced kind of like introduced my city to like a lot of different things. So it's been it's been a fun ride.
That's awesome. Just be yourself. That's people appreciate the authenticity. That's cool. So, I mean, did it start off like when you first started sampling? You're probably like a teenager, and tell me how that began. Your first beat and sample, and how'd the magic start?
Well, my parents bought me a computer like where they had the family computer there. Like when I was like probably like uh 8 or 9, I started drawing on it and things like that. I was one of those kids that was just like fixing everything for my family. You know what I'm saying? Like when it came to electronics and stuff like that. And so when I uh when I got into the music thing, I was already doing like art and things like that. I went to school to be a graphic designer, so that was kind of like what I wanted to do. But when I uh, when I discovered like beat making and looping and stuff, I started recording the samples into my mom's computer, and I would like chop them into little loops and just kind of like listen to what it would sound like if it was a beat or figure out how people sampled another song. And I found this program called Acid Pro, and it's sort of similar to like the way Ableton is now.
I remember, yeah.
It was all loops, you know what I mean? And man, it just kind of blew my mind because it would like time stretch everything to kind of beat match and stuff like that. And being a DJ, I was kind of fortunate to have the skills to like beat match and understand like slowing down and speeding up tempos to kind of like match. And that program was cool. I made all kinds of little beats on there, and then later on, as a graduation gift, my parents bought me a MPC 2000. Or actually, no, I'm sorry,
Nice.
I got the MPC in high school, and then as a graduation gift, they gave me like a MIDI keyboard, like a Yamaha CS1X, which was a synth that was being used back in the day for like dance music and stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I started creating beats and then with loops and then using the keyboard to kind of like make sub bass or make like weird sounds and things like that. And it just kind of started like developing from there. And after I got the MPC, I kind of like left the computer because there wasn't really like Ableton or anything like that. Everything was kind of like so expensive that I just started making everything on my MPC, and I did that for years. And then once like I got into like Ableton, I mean Reason, and then uh Ableton and Digital Performer and all these other programs that I was using to like record bands and stuff like that. That's kind of what I kind of like migrated to. Um, that's where I just started like discovering like what I was gonna start doing was mixing live instruments with samples and things like that. And then I ended up like chopping up some cumbia songs that she had in her record collection, and that just sort of like I developed my own sound, I guess, doing hip hop beats with cumbia samples, and got a couple of, you know, there was a band called the Cumbia Kings that were around back in the day
Oh,
here,
oh yeah.
and I did some scratching, and I started to see like how they were putting together their things, and just super inspired by Tejano musicians, period, just because that's what was going on around here, you know, and and then one day I made a "Que le pasa" on my MPC. It was a song that I did, and me and my buddies we made a video for it, and it just like went kind of like it was like at the beginning stages of YouTube. Uh, we kind of went viral, and a couple weeks later, I got a call from this label in Germany called Man Recordings, and then from there we got a call from Universal, and then I got signed with Universal, and I was with them for 10, 12 years, and you know it just kind of took off from there. And now I've got my own indie label, and I'm doing my own thing and distributing my own music and some of my friends' music and people that I produce and things like that. So uh, just kind of snowballed, you know.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So take me back to that MPC 2000. Probably when you got that as a gift, it was probably like, ah, like it was like
Yeah.
the gates of heaven opening. I mean, what
Well,
was going through your mind?
the funny thing was that I was super into like Chicago house music at the time,
Hmm.
and like hard house, like underground construction label, and you know, Bad Boy Bill, and all these kind of like guys that I was looking up to, and what they were doing were making these mixes that were like so fast that like there it was impossible to like do it live, you know. So it was like mixing over scratching, and then they would like, you know, do all this stuff, and it was just like, dude, how are they doing this, you know what I'm saying? And so I called like one of those, like I would always get those like music catalogs, you know what I mean, the for the instruments and things like that, and I called the guy, and I was like, hey man, like how are these guys doing these mixtapes, you know what I'm saying? And the dude like told me, he was like, and I don't know who the guy is, but he's out there somewhere, and he was like, oh man, they use the MPC, and that you can sample it in, or you can record it into the MPC, and it has multiple tracks that you can use to kind of like make your mixtape. And I was like, oh, okay, well, shit, let me get one. And so I bought one, and you know, man, I mean, I don't,
Game changer, right?
yeah, well, well, it's funny because when I got it, I was like, this thing only holds like 20 seconds of samples. You know what I'm saying? There's not like a hard drive in there or nothing like that. And so I kind of got tricked into buying it because I thought I was gonna be able to make mixtapes on there, but really it was like a beat production thing. And
Right,
so it kind of sat for a little bit, and then I kind of like a friend of mine sort of showed me how to use it to like make beats, you know. And I was kind of doing my thing on the computer still, and then when he showed me how to do that, I was like, yo, so this isn't even four mixtapes or anything like that, you know. I need like a multi-track recorder or a four track or something like that.
right.
And as a kid, I was just like every single day, that was my hobby. I wasn't doing anything else. I wasn't like playing outside with my friends or none of that stuff. I was in the studio since I was 12 years old, you know what I mean? And um so you know, it just kind of like happened by chance, and I'm grateful for that guy, whoever he was, for tricking me into doing that. But it worked, you know. And later on in life, I here I am producing beats and making stuff. I'm still making mixtapes and things like that, but the beats are my life pretty much right now.
Tell me, so like when you're making those first beats, were you going out and DJing those live, like promoting your stuff in between the other songs?
Well, you know, for from the time I was probably like 13 to like, I mean, it seems like such a long period to me, but thinking back on it, it was only like 3 or 4 years. But like from when I was like 13 to like 16 or 17, I was just kind of making the beats and leaving them in the MPC, you know what I'm saying? Like saving them, and I didn't know how to like transfer them over to the computer the correct way. So sometimes what I would do is I would just record it into the computer, like play it out of the MPC and record it into the computer, and then I could listen to it, but I didn't have like a CD burner or nothing like that at the time, and so I was just kind of listening to stuff on my computer, on my family computer, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so once like CD burning came out and things like that, like I had a friend that I had a friend that had one, and so I would go to his place and I'd be like, or I would tell him to bring it over. It was like a VCR kind of thing, you know, at
Oh
the time.
yeah,
And I
they were
told him
huge.
they were huge.
Hey, this is Jeff. I'd like to take a second and tell you about this channel. I really encourage you to hit the subscribe button. This really helps out the channel, helps it grow. And also, if you can like and put your comments for this video, that'd so much be appreciated. This really helps me to continue to book amazing artists that hopefully inspire you and continue to grow this channel. Thank you.
And I just dumped a bunch of stuff onto CDs all the time, and they weren't like complete or anything like that, like super duper arranged or nothing. But these are just like loop style beats, you know, like MPC chops and drums and things like that. And um, but the cool thing was that I was sampling all these like Spanish records that I was finding, and I started finding like Spanish records like Jose and Rafael and Sandro and
Yeah.
Camilo Sesto and stuff like that. She had a lot of that in her collection, and it was like, man, this stuff sounds just like the Motown stuff, but it's in Spanish. It kind of like turned me on a little bit more, you know.
Right.
I found all these like real Wu Tang-ish type samples in these Spanish records that it kind of became my like signature sound, you know, like where I was sampling old soul music, but it was Spanish. And then putting like congas and Latin percussion over it was kind of something I was already doing just because I was like hearing bands around here doing that. And I mean I was in rock bands and things like that, and I would put Latin percussion on on the songs that I was making for them and things. So it just kind of became my sound, you know.
It's a great sound, and I'm sure you eventually played it out live in your
Oh
DJ
yeah.
sets. What was the reaction? Because like you said, Corpus Christi is a good, like it's they're open. So what?
Yeah, it's a good boot camp. So when I got into sort of like edits and I figured out that you can kind of, you know, how to remix songs and things like that. So I started like making my own remixes of these old cumbia songs like Andres Landero and Cecil Piñas and things like that. And I was kind of like I would play them in my DJs. I was DJing out, you know, and I would play them in my DJ sets, like kind of like sneaking them in there. Um, and I, you know, I've always been like, you know, I love DJing. And when I was, even when I was young, I used to throw parties at my house, and people would come over, and I'd play music. And I've always been like that guy to turn people on to music. You know what I'm saying? And and so I kind of got good at DJing at a young age. And when I turned 16, I got a job at the radio station doing a mix show. And
Nice.
from there, I started learning about programming and things like that. And so what? Because before I was DJing on vinyl, and I was like all hip hop records like Wu Tang Clan and Black Moon and Farside and all this stuff that like nobody was into over here. So I so I wasn't like I was skill wise I was getting better, but programming wise I didn't really have it. But when I went to the radio station, I learned about programming, you know, uh, uh, the program director there, Ed Ocañas, he kind of like guided me. It's like, yo, you got to play stuff that people know, you know what I mean, and play the songs that we have on the radio. And then he was like, here's a big record collection. You can use these records, or you can take these records, and then I started seeing that all the DJs were getting these promos, like there was this like promo list that was like this like kind of like fairy tale that DJs were getting like free records to their house, you know. And so I asked Ed about it, and Ed was like, "Oh yeah, I can add you to it because you have a mix show on the air. They'll start sending you. You're going to start getting calls from labels and things like that." And I was like, "Yo, yeah, let's do it," you know. And so from the time I was probably like 16 till shit, man, like like later, like I don't know when they stopped sending them, like years, like for years they were sending records to my house and promos, you know what I mean? So I got this huge collection of hip hop records and R&B stuff and dance and everything that, and I just kind of learned to like be an open format DJ. And being here in this town, it's kind of like that's what people like. You have to kind of mix it up, you know, because there's not too many people. There's not like huge subcultures. All the subcultures are kind of mixed together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we didn't have the great emo versus heavy rocker metal guys clash here. We had like they were all hanging together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because we're all raised in the same place. And so I learned how to like be an open format DJ, and it's really tough because like these, you know, in a small town you get judged. You know what I mean? Like they know who you are, and if you suck, then everybody's gonna know. You know, so fortunately I learned how to do it. You know, like I had the best guys like showing me how to program and showing me how to read the room, and I would go to the clubs when I was 16, 17 and hang out in the DJ booth and just study these guys that were older than me DJing at the clubs. I learned how to like program. So when I later on when I started DJing on my own at clubs and things, I was like I would play regular songs, like regular hip hop stuff, and then I started throwing in like Selena and Tejano stuff, and then introducing these other kind of cumbias and things like that. And then I was like, dude, how can I like make this blend better, right? So like when I was
Yeah.
doing it live, though, that's what I started making. I started making these like remixes where it was like super old cumbias, and I would just throw them in there, like sneaking them into my DJ sets, and then you know, when you start doing something like that, like all of a sudden you're the guy who like plays cumbia, you know, even though like 90% of my set was rap and hip hop, uh, I just became known as that guy. And then when my song came out, when Que Le Pasa dropped, uh, it just blew up, you know. I did Que Le Pasa, and along with Que Le Pasa, I made like 10, 12 other songs, and I made an album called Soy Yo that was like all samples, sort of like a DJ Shadow type of vibe. I was really inspired by DJ Shadow because he was
Uh-huh.
the whole album. His whole album was compilation of samples and like I don't even know how to explain it, but that's
He was
what
a
I
big sample guy.
yeah, and so that's what I kind of did is, but I did it in my own way with the cumbia, and so that album I put it on MySpace, and man, I started getting hit up by like all these DJs from all around the world, uh, just from having those songs on MySpace, you know, and people were asking to download them, and they're asking if I had more, and I had like a shitload of them, so I would burn CDs and I would just give them out to like everybody when I would go to South by Southwest or DJing in South Padre or wherever I was at. And eventually, like, it just turned into like now, you know, not all these DJs are doing edits and all these DJs are doing remixes as the technology caught up with us. You know what I'm saying? And so it was super cool, man. Like I got some cool breaks because of I guess the originality of what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't anybody kind of doing this like Texas sort of cumbia hip hop stuff. There was, and then took it even further when because my stuff was like you'll if you ever get a chance to check out Soyo, it's on Bandcamp and stuff. But it's it's super like it's like hip hop. It's not like club. I mean, I guess it's kind of club music too, but it's super hip hop influenced. Dirty drum breaks and a bunch of switch ups and scratches and stuff like that. And uh, and then I discovered these guys in Dallas that were doing this stuff called cumbia crunk that was like chopped up. It was sort of the same thing, but more for the club. Like they were chopping up like Little John songs and putting them with accordion and sampling those kinds of beats at the time. And so I started trying to make that kind of stuff, and I never really like got it the way they have it. You know, my stuff has always been a little bit different. Um, and and I mean, I was just super inspired by those guys to kind of try to like bring out that club sound in my songs, and and it just like snowballed from there, man. All these, you know, cumbia kind of became a thing. Uh, People started to understand it once like we started making videos. You know what I mean? Like the when my first video came out, like it was like, oh shit, I see what you're doing now. Like now there's like a face culture to a culture to this face a face of this culture that like didn't exist. You know, like people started seeing, like, I made that video and all my friends were in the video dancing and we're having a party. It was actually my birthday. And
Which song was the video to?
it was a song called Que Le Pasa.
Yeah,
And
Paso.
and so it just it went like it went really viral, I guess, at the time. What that would you, that's what I don't even know if that was a word back then, but but like
Viral before
yeah,
viral.
yeah. So that's what kind of happened, and it just kind of worked in my favor because I just kind of stuck to that sound. And now there's, there's different people kind of doing that kind of stuff, and now there's even more underground cumbia that's like super super cool that I love. And all these guys from different countries making cumbia mixed with influence with hip hop, because the newer generation, that's just what they know. You know what I'm saying? They don't know that's just what they make. Like
You paved the way for them.
well, yeah, sure. And then also, like, with technology, like, catching up, like, I was 13 and we didn't have it like that, but now these kids that are 13, they have Fruity Loops already on their computer, and FL Studio and all these things, and Bandcamp, Band Labs, and all these kind of like apps that are on their phones and everything. So they're just kind of like, you see kids that are 10 years old making beats now. You know what I mean? It's a
I
lot
know.
different than what it used to be.
I
Um,
know. They got
but I
all
love
these
it.
videos to teach them everything, man. You got these little
Everything.
5-year-olds killing it on guitar. You're
You,
like, how? This
you
wasn't
gotta
possible
you
back
gotta
then.
catch up. You gotta catch up, man. You gotta stay with it. And if not, like, these kids are gonna just lap you. You know what I mean? And I've been lapped plenty of times. You know what I'm saying? Where I'll discover somebody, I'm like, holy shit! Like, how the hell did you make this? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's cool. I'm super inspired by the youth. And around here, I have we have I built this building where it's kind of like a sound. We got the studio here. We have a little snack shop in the front, a little bodega, and then next door we have a stream lab. We have a hi-fi bar and another club and a record store. And
What? That's
all these
awesome.
kids, yeah, all these kids that I see, I'm just like super inspired by them because they are always pushing pushing it, like they don't stick to one genre. They don't stick to like one type of music or anything. And I don't know, man, it's just super inspiring to me to kind of like see the youth and how they interpret things with technology versus how we did it back in the day, where we were just kind of like scrounging up different things and trying to figure it out, you know what I mean? And I
Blind
love it.
inspiration. Yeah,
Yeah.
blind inspiration. That's so interesting. So you got the studio, bodega, and what else all together? Tell me. That's so interesting.
Well, the umbrella, it's called Produce. And at Produce we have the micro bodega, we have the stream lab, and then we have the sound studios, all in one building. And then next door, it's also our building. We have a little bar, we have a record store called Hybrid Records, and then OK Hi-Fi, which we just opened up in July, which is like a hi-fi bar. Vinyl, we play vinyl in there. We got DJs in there pretty much every night. And
What?
it's
That's
sort of just like
awesome.
it's a chill lounge. The vibe is super chill, but we play hip hop in there, and we do R&B and old school. Last night they were doing cumbia and Chicano soul music, and it's a cool vibe in there, and it's something that my city had never seen before. I have been seeing around in LA and in different places where I travel, and I just kind of like to like go around and see things and get inspired and then bring them home and try to do these things at home. And fortunately, uh, I've been lucky enough to like have the cooperation of the city. You know what I mean? The people in the city really dig what I do, and I mean it's they understand that the culture of what I'm pushing, cumbia and Tejano and hip hop, has been a part of what we do here in Corpus forever. I mean, we're known for that. Like Corpus Christi used to be like the Tejano Hollywood back in the day, where everybody was from here. La Sombra. All these guys are from Chicago and different places around the world. They all moved here to kind of do their thing back in the day, because the labels were all here: Freddie Records and Q Productions and EMI Latin and all these things that were here in the 90s. Um, so I feel like that's an important part of what I do, and I just kind of gotta like keep it real and keep pushing that culture, and and everybody's been supportive of it over here, and I'm very fortunate and grateful.
So did you conceive of all that at the same time? You're like, all right, check this out. We're gonna have a bodega in the front. We're gonna have a little bar in the back. Do
Man,
some
honestly,
vinyl. Then we
like
got the studio. I mean, or is it just kind of came as you built it over time?
it's definitely been over time. I mean, at the beginning it was like we wanted, me and a couple of my friends, I needed a studio. I needed uh my friend wanted to start like a clothing store, and then he also had the idea like, yo, let's make like an art gallery. And so me and a couple of friends, we kind of like moved into this building. This was back in like 2008, and we moved into this building, like we were just living all over the building, like upstairs, downstairs, like we were just crashing wherever. And it became this compound where it's kind of like, okay, like we have this clothing store that's going to bring in the money to pay the bills, and then we're all going to work there, and then we're going to have my studio here where I can, do my thing. I was starting to kind of like gain momentum at the time. And and uh and uh and then we had an art gallery next door. Eventually the art gallery got a liquor license, turned into a bar, and then uh as like back in, like, I guess, like 2017, 2018, I bought this building, and I did a little bit of remodeling where it became sort of what it is now, where it's like a little store, but we turned it into a snack store a couple of years ago. And uh and then um the gallery, turned into a bar. We had a garage there that the previous landlord, she was using it as storage, so we turned that into the record store. We have the big garage door in there and stuff. um and then next to that was another bar that was like an old people bar. It was like the oldest bar in Corpus, and it was super rundown. I love
Like
those
little
people.
dive bar.
Yeah, it was a dive bar. It was called Hank's. And the lady asked me when we bought the building, she was like, "Are you gonna kick us out?" And I was like, "Nah, man, y'all can stay here as long as you want. Like, this is a cool little vibe. It was like a super old bar." And she stayed for as long as she could, and eventually she kind of aged out of it, and she didn't want to do it no more. And she told me, she said, "Hey, I think we're gonna close the bar." And I was like, "Okay, like, whenever you're ready, just go ahead and do it." And so she closed it down, and then one of my friends who had the gallery, he was like, "Hey, do you think that we could move into that space and do a bar in there?" Dude, go for it. You know what I'm saying? So it's called Produce Barco, and it's sort of a hybrid art gallery and event space with and it's kind of a bar. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a chill little spot. And uh and then next door to that was the record store, and then where the gallery used to be, that's where we had a couple of tenants. We had a store, we had a couple of things that winery, a couple of things that tried to make it, but eventually I was like, yo, let's like start a hi-fi bar there, like a vinyl bar where I can put some of this to use, you know what I mean? And so that's what we did. And it kind of, like, I guess, final form right now is the bodega, the studios, the 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 art gallery, and record store and hi-fi. And now we moved on, and I kind of bought that next. I bought the building next door, and and we turned that into a bunch of. There was an office upstairs. It was like a lawyer's office. Had six offices. I turned that into a bunch of little studios where there's a bunch of producers, and we got a we got a couple beat makers and a band that has their studios up there. And then there's a barber up there. Now there's a tattoo shop up there. It's just kind of like this hybrid studio for different people. And downstairs, I asked some kids here that I used to see that had their own like vintage shop, way before everyone was into that sort of thing. And I asked them to if they needed a new space because I knew that their building was about to get torn down. And dude was like, hell yeah! Like, I mean, it's kind of slow downtown because it's kind of like coming back. There's a
Hmm.
lot of like empty buildings that are getting filled up and redone into apartments and things like that. So it was kind of a slow start, but man, as soon as these guys hit the ground, like, all the kids started coming downtown, and our street just became this like it's kind of like a center of downtown where like everyone sort of hangs out. And so that's what we're doing now. It's just kind of like I curated the whole street to kind of like our own little subculture. And it's been a cool ride, man. It's fun.
You created your own scene, man. That's really awesome. It's like, one thing that I noticed with your music is that you have a lot of really good collaborations. What would you say is the key to finding someone really good to collaborate with that you mesh with really well?
Um, you know, when you're coming up, like you picture yourself like well, at least I did. I was like, oh man, I want to collaborate with this guy. I would reach out to them, and a lot of people just like would leave me on red and things like that. You know what I'm saying? But once I started getting a little momentum, I started getting hit up by a lot of different people, a lot of younger DJs, a lot of younger artists that are trying to do their thing. And I've always been kind of like drawn to like what the kids were doing just because it's so fresh. And I think like it was a gift and a curse that I started off so young because I, I was already I was considered I was like in their generation of DJs rather than my generation because my generation like we didn't have the technology to kind of like start until we were 20 or whatever, but I
Right.
was already doing it at 15, 16 with the older guys, so I was kind of like in their sort of like movement, so I've just kind of like I'm just like inspired by younger generations and listening to what they checking out what they listen to. I mean all kinds of music, not just the new stuff, but I don't know, man. I've just been kind of like I just always tried to read the room, you know what I'm saying? And wherever I'm at, I just kind of like program from there. But as far as like sorry, I'm kind of like going off on a tangent, but like
All
the
right.
but for the collaborations, people been reaching out to me, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of people that are doing the same kind of style of stuff that I do. Um and of course, I'm still reaching out to people all the time to collaborate and things. Um I've been working with a lot of these guys from Mexico that do like the cumbia belicas and these like new sort of like corridos and things like that where it's basically trap music, but they're the trap music attitude and they're using traditional. I mean, I wouldn't even call it. I don't even know if it's traditional anymore. They call it corridos, but it's not. Definitely not like the old school corridos the way they used to be. This is like their own new style, and they've invented this the way they play the music and everything. So I'm just kind of like all over the place. I reach out to people that I really dig. People hit me up, and uh and I'm just always down to collaborate and just kind of just see what happens.
Do you usually collaborate remotely or in studio or?
Yeah, I go out to LA and Miami quite a bit, and I meet a lot of people. We collaborate, and then sometimes I'll just take it home and finish it up. Trying to get the most out of my time whenever I'm out in those places. Like I feel like when I'm at home, I get to kind of like chill a little more, and then I'll go somewhere and stay for a couple of weeks, and I'll just work like nonstop and just bring it home and just okay, now I got 10 songs that I can work on for the next couple of weeks. Um, and that's kind of what I do, is like I'll travel, collaborate, bring it home, finish it up, or people will come down here. A lot of people have come to Corpus from all over the world and stayed here for a couple, stayed at my house. I live upstairs too, so they stay here or get a hotel and we'll work on stuff and finish it remotely or finish it here. I mean, it's just kind of all whatever we can do.
Somebody that maybe you wanted to work with, and then when you got in the room with them or what have you, you're like, man, this is a whole different level. Now I'm going into another dimension.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say, well, the first time that I went, I mean, I was like 16 or whatever when I went to like Q Productions to go. They asked me to do some scratches on the Cumbia Kings album, and
Oh,
uh,
nice.
and so I went over there and I was super like, whoa, man, this is a big studio. There's, there and I saw the way they were making the things happen. It was like, it was super inspiring. That was something that I was really inspired by. But later on, when I started making my own music, um, I got in the studio. I've always looked up to Toy Selecta. He's a DJ from Mexico that he's a producer as well. He was the guy who started Control Machete. They became legends in their own right with huge hits, and they shifted the culture. They were the some of the first hip hop guys to like sample cumbia and things like that. um but when I got in the room with Toy, we had been friends for a long time and shared music and things like that, and I've always heard his stuff. But when I got in the studio with him and I had a bunch of finished songs that he was like, let me listen to your songs, pull them up, and I was like, all right, cool. And Toys, he's like kind of like a drill sergeant, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't, and you know, I'm a little younger than him, so he's kind of like, you like listen to me, like I do, you know, because he's been through it, and as I do with I've got a lot of respect for the older people and people that have been through more than I have. So he was like, let me mess with this for a second. And so I pulled up this song that I had, like for example, it's called Canto Negro. It's out right now, but when I had it, it had like a vibe, and it was like, man, I've never made a song this cool, you know, like this is a really cool song. I had a collaborated with this reggae artist named Geoff Fabio, and I had like some really cool cumbia samples on there, and it was a hip hop club song, you know. And then
Yeah.
when Toy like opened up my laptop, he just made a couple of changes, and it just changed the whole song like so drastically that I was just like, dude, like how did you even do this? Like how did that work like so fast, you know? And then again, he pulled up another song and just did sort of the same thing, and it was just like, man, this is crazy. This guy has so much experience um producing that it was just like it just came natural to him. He knew exactly what the songs were missing and things like that. And those are the kinds of things that I'm fortunate enough to like pick up, and I kind of like now I see myself doing like the same thing whenever somebody brings their songs over here. I'm like, oh man, I could, you know, everything is cool. The kick drum is a little off. Like let's fix the kick drum, or let's update your sound to like something newer, or change the beat up right here. I use a lot of like traditional rhythms, so I kind of try to follow how like a real band would play it, even
Right.
though it's an EDM song, or even though it's a club song. You know what I'm saying? So I was just I was super blown away by Toy the first time we were in the studio together, and big up to him, man. He's been a big inspiration and a mentor for me my whole career. You know.
That sounds like a great breakthrough. I'm sure that that really got you to the next level. And then tell me about your two-time Latin Grammy nominee.
Man, and I I guess it was 2017. I released Cumbia Anthem, another chopped up hip hop song that I did with
Great song, by the way. That
yeah,
sounds
big
awesome.
song. It
Yeah.
had a lot of like when that song came out, it kind of like opened the doors for like a lot of other things for me. Um, and then we got nominated for a Grammy. It just happened, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of just changed my whole career. I mean, like uh, when they say the the price ain't the same as yesterday, that was exactly what happened. Like literally the next couple of weeks were like getting all these calls for gigs, and getting syncs, and getting all kinds of people asking me to produce them and things like that, just because of the label, you know, like the label of having a Grammy nomination, like this, the authenticity of having a title, you know, like um and then this past year, I've been working on a lot of like regional Mexican music, and cumbia, traditional cumbia, and things like that. And I produced this girl, uh, and uh, and she got nominated for another Latin Grammy, and so that was number
Nice. Nice, man. That's great. So tell me about the new stuff, like Tra 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 and the Phoenix. I mean, I really like the musical direction. What's next for that?
when I was signed with Universal, I was kind of like, you know, they were at first it was kind of like a reggaeton label, it turned into like an EDM label. And so I was kind of like I guess I was trying to like really like fit in with that sort of like thing. I was like, okay, well let's make this type of music, you know what I mean? And let's really try to like please the label. But once I started learning the politics of it, and learning like, you know, like man, it's weird because when you have that kind of machine backing you up, like it's really up to the label, man. Like they can push anything out there, and it'll become big, you know. They have the channels for it. It's a cheat code to be signed to these like major labels, you know. And I know some people will disagree with me, but the way my experience in it was like whatever they promoted worked, you know.
That's the
And
hit. That's the
that,
hit. If they got
that's the
behind it, that was the hit record.
after my contract was up, I fulfilled my whole contract. They asked if I wanted to sign again, and I was kind of like, man, I think I'm just gonna try my own thing. You know, people. people started offering me distribution deals and things like that. And so I was like, I'm gonna, because one thing about being signed with a big label is it takes a long time for you to drop your song. So by the time your song comes out, you're done with it. You know, especially nowadays, everything is so fast. But being with a major, you guys got to plan a year ahead of time. You know what I mean? And that's just how they work, and that's probably why it's so successful. But also, for someone like me who's a DJ and I stay up with the music, the genres change like overnight, you know. So I try to make stuff that goes with the stuff that people are going to be playing at the club.
Right.
Um, and so now I've just kind of like I have this freedom to kind of do what I want to do, and that's what I've been doing. I've been making. I love house music. I love dance music. I love EDM. I love drum and bass, and I love cumbia. So I've just been trying to like mesh up all these genres and without any limitations with the label or with like um with the label or with a label like labeling me as like, hey, you're this type of artist or this is the kind of music that we're gonna push or whatever. So it's kind of like a freedom that I have now that I don't have to worry about pleasing anybody else. And I'm kind of digging it. Yeah. It's very tough to push out your own stuff. And I definitely have like felt like, you know, like, damn, dude, like this didn't work like as good as I thought it was gonna be a lot of times, you know, but also like the stress level, you know, like everybody has like issues, you know, I've gone through a lot in my life, you know, and um so that stress was just something that I didn't need anymore. And I was just like, all right, dude, like I'm gonna do my own thing, and this level of stress is not gonna be the same. Little did I know that it was like gonna
A
be
different kind of
a
stress.
different kind of stress, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and it is tough, you know what I mean? Like so luckily I have friends that are in the music industry now that help me out. And I've learned a lot of things from being with the label and just sitting around in those meetings in those big rooms that they've had me in. That I've, you know, I've kind of like turned a page and said, this is cool. I like this. I like where I'm at right now. I dig what I'm doing. And if the time comes and if the deal is right and another label approaches me, well, maybe I'll consider doing that again. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing because I have so much freedom to kind of like get into all these genres that I've always wanted to do.
That's great. So you're able to do your music with no interference, and you find that you're more true as an artist now.
Big time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And luckily with the success that I've had with being signed with the label and doing my, you know, hustling so much my whole life that I, I kind of like I already did that. I already did Cumbia Anthem a bunch of times, you know what I'm saying? And I still get people that hit me up that want to whenever they're wanting to get produced, they're like, "Hey, can you make me something like this?" And they'll send me Cumbia Anthem. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, "Yo, all right, yeah, I got that. Like I can do that in my sleep, you know, like let's do it." Um, but you know, the songs that I've been dropping, tra tra, the Phoenix, Vamos pa allá, these are all genres that I've loved my whole life that I've just kind of tried to integrate into my music, and now I'm able to do it without any limitations.
I totally see what you're saying. I think it's like the industry has changed, and I don't know, is it me or does it seem more open? Because I remember back in the day, if it was like, if you were hip hop, you were hip hop, even though you wanted to try, it's just
Yeah,
like you're saying, you want to do a little bit of, no, 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 you're in the hip hop corner. You stay over there. You don't go over there. You stay
yeah.
right. And but now it just seems like, is it me or is the environment so much more open to just like mixing different styles?
It definitely is, and I think it's just it's another. It goes back to the technology conversation, Spotify, and you know, you go to a Spotify playlist, and it says like it's not the genre anymore; it's the vibe of what the playlist is. You know, like, and that's really something that we really started to understand when COVID came, is like, yo, I'm sitting at home and I want to listen to, you know, this heavy stuff, but I also love listening to emo and I love listening to instrumentals and I love listening to jazz and lo-fi and all these kinds of things. So now the playlists are all about vibes, you know, like how do I feel when I listen to this type of music? you know, the nostalgia is a big word, and it's a big thing that people are looking for now, you know. And so that's what you get when you mix all these songs that you've heard, or styles that you've heard throughout your life. And I think that, like, thanks to technology, we're able to, like, experiment. As an artist, I'm able to experiment in all these different types of genres that I like doing. And even going more so as where, like, with the technology of, like, these distribution labels that are online that you can just sign up for, you can you can change your name and be another artist, or you can do a different project. I did a project called Sombrero Galaxy where I turned myself into this, like, cholo Mandalorian, and I kind of made this comic book, and I scored the comic book, and it was a hip hop album. It wasn't cumbia, you know what I mean? And I would never have had those opportunities signed with a label. The label wouldn't have taken Sombrero Galaxy, you know what I'm saying? But that's one of my most played albums there that I have right now, you know, and I would have never got that opportunity being signed with a label. Um, they just, I don't, their infrastructure is not built for that, you know what I mean? Well, like, all kinds of experimentation. They have the system down. Like, hey, this guy's a corridos artist. Make those corridos, and we'll put them in the right places. You know what I mean? And when you're experimenting with different things like this, it's kind of a shot in the dark, you know what I mean? And sometimes sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? I got tons of songs out. I released at least 15 songs last year, and they're all different styles, you know what I'm saying? Some of them are, there's a drum and bass song with accordion on it. There's a the Phoenix where it's kind of like this, like, mid-tempo house beat. There's, like, I have these banger songs out there where I was dropping these IDs like once a month, and they're just EDM songs. You know what I'm saying? And I would have never been able to do that signed with a label. You know, I'm very grateful for the experience, learning, and taking in what I could at the time. And luckily, I was smart enough to, or and old enough to understand, like, yo, like, you got to, like, learn here, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know what I mean? And that's what I took it as, was a great opportunity, and that's what it was for me. And I learned a lot. You know.
So you got the best of both worlds because you got the old school record industry the way that it was, but now you get to enjoy the present, which is kind of like everybody does whatever they want. I mean, even would you say with the record labels, really what's happening now is that these artists are just getting out there doing their thing, and then they come in and embrace it after, but you've already established yourself in your own style.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You know, there's still a lot of, like, genre specific artists out there, but then you got guys like um Bad Bunny who have dipped into, like, traditional salsa, and then, like, you know, they even have, like, rock songs on some of their albums and things like that, where it's like people want to hear these artists doing different styles of music. I think, you know, like, how cool is it to hear Bad Bunny on some salsa record?
It's
it's
awesome.
it's, it's amazing, you know what I'm saying? And the
Yeah.
production style of the way they do it, their interpretation of, like, what salsa music is, what they hear, and what instruments they use and samples that they're using on the songs, completely different than what traditional salsa is, but it still gives you that feeling of what it really was. And it's like, oh man, this reminds me of being at my mom's house back in the day. And dude, if a kid listens to it, they're not gonna know what that is. All they're gonna know is this is Bad Bunny. You know what I mean? It's
And
doing
that
this
is good.
weird music that sounds cool, you know, and that's good. Yeah, exactly. Like it's a good thing. And I dig that, you know.
So tell me, what's next going on for you for this year and beyond?
Man, this year we have coming up in next couple of weeks. We got South by Southwest. I haven't been an official artist for a couple of years, and this year they asked me to come back and play. And I've just been getting bombarded with gigs for that week. I got like 3 gigs in one day. I have, like, every day I have something, a showcase, and we got a really big one for KEXP on Wednesday that they're doing with a bunch of other cumbia artists from around the world, other DJs that I really look up to. And then that night is a cumbia night at this, like, established, like, Austin venue where Hotel Vegas, where they kind of, like, they're known for doing cumbia nights on Wednesdays, and that night's gonna be super awesome. I'm playing a party with Adrian Casadas. He's a guy from the Black Pumas. It's super cool. He's out of Austin, and we're doing I'm gonna play his night. there's a bunch of stuff going on in South by, and then I got we're playing Jazz Fest in New Orleans this year. We got asked to do Jazz Fest, which is crazy. Um, I had a friend of mine that was here the other day, Joseph. Sorry, Joseph, I'm gonna throw you under the bus for a second. But he was here and he was like, he does jazz, like he's a jazz dude, like saxophone and then when I was like, oh, he was like, hey man, what are you guys up to this year or whatever? I thought, oh man, we're gonna do Jazz Fest, and he was just kind of like, I never
What?
got to do Jazz Fest. I was like, oh man, I'm sorry, but this year they're trying to do something different. I hear it's like a Sounds of Mexico or something like that, and they asked us to come play, man, and it's gonna be super fun. A couple of other friends of ours are playing as well. I've never been to Jazz Fest before, um, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're gonna kind of experiment with the set into different types of things, and just kind of like do our thing. You know what I'm saying? Um, and then the gigs are starting to come in. The slow season is pretty for me is pretty much December through March, and today's March 1st. As we've been going, I just been getting hit up nonstop. It's like, hey, can you play here? Can you do this? Cinco de Mayo, like all these gigs that are starting to pop up, and with whenever you get onto that South by network, that South by Southwest, I think that a lot of agents and a lot of promoters are looking at that and they're like, oh, what does this artist do? What does this artist do? And they're starting to hit me up like from those announcements.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as far as music releases, what are you going to do this year?
Every month I have at least one song coming out. I just dropped a song called Solitos with my friend Po Leos. She's a new artist out of LA that does like she's a young she's a young one that doing all kinds of different genres. She's really talented in writing and singing, and she sent me some songs that were I don't know if she was doing originally like trying to do pop, or I think she wanted to dive into the cumbia thing. But when I sent it back to her, I was like, yo, I took it to my friend who does like regional Mexican traditional music, um, and we made like this like traditional regional Mexican cumbia song with those type of beats, no 808s or nothing like that. And I sent it to her, and she was just like, yo. She started sending me more songs, and we just started doing that same thing where they're like all live instruments, live drums, live bass, live guitar and bajo sexto and accordion. And it's just like with her voice so like new, and so like her writing style is so new and modern, mixed with these sort of like traditional elements. It just really makes the song kind of like be very palate friendly. And if you listen to that song, you'll right away you're gonna be like, oh man, I love this. This is super cool. She
Oh,
plays guitar, and she blessed us with this really cool guitar lick, and then from there we turned it into this cumbia song. And we have a
man.
couple more songs coming out with her. I got more songs with DJ Kane from the Cumbia Kings. He's been a collaborator of mine since I met them when I was 15. He's always been on the cutting edge of stuff as well. He was a reggae artist before he got signed with the Cumbia Kings, and he kind of like brought that element to them. Was doing like that dance hall sort of vocals, and he's an amazing singer, um, doing R&B and what he does. We got a couple more songs coming out. I got a bunch of songs with Los Racas. I've done a couple of remix albums with some bands. One is a band out of Austin called Nemegata. They're like a Colombian traditional cumbia band, and we have a whole EP out, or a whole EP coming out. And then last year I dropped, or this a couple months ago I dropped a remix album with these guys from the Bay called Quien Sabe, and they're a band as well. And I remixed their music into like some club. I don't know what it is, but it's really dope. We ended up pressing it on vinyl, and that's out now. And I got a lot more vinyl releases coming out. I've been dropping 45s and things like that. Just like trying to experiment with different kinds of ways to like put out music. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to stick to like the traditional, just like drop the song and promote it. Of course we're doing that, but trying to figure out ways to kind of like get it into other people's hands besides just like, hey, listen to me on Spotify. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
here's a vinyl record, like here, check it out. Like you can play this at home. And I think that people are looking for that like nostalgia of like sitting around and listening to music back at home, because like a lot of people don't like to go out no more. I mean, after COVID, my whole going out and I just kind of chill, man. Like I don't, I'm very into being at home. I love being here. I love going out and playing my gigs and things like that and doing that. But like, I slowed down a lot, like going out and things like that after COVID. And I think a lot of people did, like being in the bar business, you see it, you know what I mean? Like you're like, damn, people just like to chill, And so that's why I opened up OK Hi-Fi was it's a chill spot. There's not a dance floor. It's more of a listening lounge. It's got a DJ booth, but we built like, some really cool seats and a lot of our pieces. It's inspired by like a lot of vintage things. We found all these really cool vintage things that we sort of like incorporated with the design of the place, light fixtures and old wood and like um just like just I worked with a designer friend of mine, this guy Justin Ganan, he's known for just getting all these old things and sort of repurposing them into like new stuff. Like he has a coffee shop down the street, and I was just looking around there, and I was like, man, this place is who did this place? It was just like it's all this old stuff. Like they have this big shelf, and I looked at it, and it's like, dude, these are old office doors. Like this is like he built this shelf out of office doors. It's amazing, and he doesn't paint it to make it look new. He lets it breathe, you know what I mean? And he lets it be, and it's kind of already been used, and it's been in the world already the way it is, and it fits like that. So that I brought that into our design here, where it's like, oh dude, let's use some of these familiar things that people are used to, that they see every day. We got some vintage light pieces in there, and we have like I said, like the old wood and things like that. And it just sort of like, as soon as you walk in, you already feel the vibe. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's like, man, where'd this old light come from? And it's like, well, we stole it out of that old building over there that's abandoned. And that's true, you know what I mean? Like, but there was like we have some light fixtures in there from some old buildings here downtown that like they're just, you know, they're they're
Just
abandoned.
sitting there.
So we took one of them. It was one light fixture, cool. And people are like, hey, where's that from? And I'm like, oh, it's from the theater over there, like down the street, you know what I mean? And I mean, it is what it is, man.
That's awesome. Creative in so many different ways. Tell me where can people find you online?
I'm we're doing a lot of stuff on Instagram. Like I said, I'm inspired by the youth. I really like I had some really cool breaks as a kid coming up. I got picked up by that radio station when I was 16, and I just try to show that same sort of love to when I meet kids that are trying to do things. And I met these guys that are filmmakers here, and they had their own series, like web series. They did a whole show, like 6 seasons of this show. It was a sort of like a comedy drama. And when I watched it, I was like, man, these guys are brilliant. They're using what they have to kind of like make an entire film, and it's super well put together. So when I saw the guy at Justin's coffee shop down the street, and I was just like, hey, his name's Chris. I was like, Chris, like, what do you guys do? Like, what? We started talking, and I was like, man, why don't you come work out of the studio? Like, come check it out. And so my door is always open to a lot of kids come in here, and they just, sometimes they need a place to work. I'm like, dude, go sit in the stream lab. You know what I mean? Like, use the Wi-Fi. Sometimes the coffee shop is too busy because it's a small town, man. So you go somewhere, and like, you're always going to see your friends wherever you go, So I know
Right.
that they were trying, Chris was trying to work at the coffee shop a lot, and he would just like, dude, every time he would go in there, somebody would be talking to him, and so that's why I brought them in here at first. And then I was like, hey man, I'm not, I kind of aged out of this like social media thing. I grew up in it. Like I said, I started young, so I was able to, I grasp it at an early age. But now that I'm 44, man, so I'm kind of like, I can't keep up with like everything that all these guys are doing. But rather than just me trying to do it, I want to focus on my music. And what I'm doing is I'm giving these kids, I say, hey man, here, I got this camera, I got this equipment, I got this space. Use it for your things, but also, can you help me with my stuff? And can you work here at the store? And can you run my social media and things like that? And so they've just brought all kinds of stuff to the table. I wasn't necessarily comfortable with doing a lot of the selfie things and shit like that. You know, that's just not my style. And they kind of like, he's a director, so he directed me into doing it, you know? So that's what we're doing now. If you look at my Instagram, it's a lot of skits and a lot of like these like non-traditional sort of like ways of marketing music. And that's kind of like what like I'm digging it, you know what I mean? I let them do their thing and they're kind of like, hey, why don't you try this? And I'm like, all right, well, screw it, let's do it. And then I do it and it works, you know. I did a video the other day that we did that song with DJ Kane. We tried to promote the song. I told the audience a little bit about their backstory, and it was kind of like one of those kind of like informative posts. And dude, went crazy, you know what I mean? And these guys, you know, it's just kind of like I just love to see people do their thing and for it to work, you know. But that's kind of where you can catch me now. We're doing you can find my stuff on Instagram. You can find me on Spotify. I have my website ldusty.com, and I'm really active on the socials. And that's just kind of where I'm promoting my stuff is through social media and things like that. Also,
Awesome.
with our bodega, I let the guys kind of do their thing as well, and they've been advertising the bodega with these like skits, like comedy skits. You know what I mean? It's like definitely a non-traditional way of advertising your business. But if you go to our Instagram, you'll see all these like skits on there that they're producing, and they're man, it's just amazing. You know what I mean? And it's a definitely not the traditional advertising sort of way. It's these like acted skits with actors, which are these guys that work here and these girls that work here. And it's been fun, man. Like just watching them kind of develop their own style and develop like these things that are we're just doing our own thing and it's working. You know what I'm saying? I love seeing that.
Creativity at its best. El Dusty, man, it's been an honor and a privilege, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. Looking forward to checking out the IG and all these awesome releases you got going on this year. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you too, man. I appreciate your time and I'm here anytime.